Hi everyone, this is Stephanie Adams with SOS Solutions and welcome to Credit 101. So I put this together because I am probably asked daily to do a first-time homebuyers class or some kind of a seminar for people who maybe have limited knowledge on how FICO scores actually work. And it kind of got to be that I was being asked so much that I was like, man, I can't believe people don't know all this stuff. So I figured I would put it out here, the actual class that I teach in person, so that it could be accessed by anybody. And hopefully you learn something that maybe you didn't know before. Learn a couple of tricks on how to raise your credit score, and hopefully this will help you in the future for you or whoever you know may need it, and you can pass that information along. So with that, let's kick this off. All right, everyone, welcome to Credit 101 with SOS Solutions. Thanks for joining us. I really hope you do learn some good tips here. I hope you learned something that maybe you didn't know before. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so my name is Stephanie Adams. I am a credit repair specialist. I am also the owner of SOS Credit Solutions. My information is provided for you right here on the screen. So if you need to contact me later on, you have more questions, you can simply email me or give me a call or visit the website at soscreditsolutions.com, where you can sign up for a credit review. All right, so credit's important. Everybody's using credit. It seems like you can't mow your lawn or use the bathroom without credit lately, but in all seriousness, every lender is going to use credit. Well, most lenders are going to use credit, and the ones that don't use credit are normally the ones that are charging you an astronomical amount of money to finance with their company. So most lenders, insurers, service providers are using credit. Employers are starting to use your credit information to gauge if they're dealing with someone that's reliable or responsible. They're also trying to gauge their risk of theft. So we live right here in Hampton Roads, and we have the largest military community. And I cannot tell you how many of my clients are military members who are coming to me because their clearances are at risk because they have credit issues. So even in the United States military, you cannot have bad credit if you want a top secret clearance, because that makes you a risk to selling government secrets or whatever it is, but it makes you a risk. So even employers are checking your credit. Your qualification for whatever it is that you're applying for is dependent on your credit score. The higher the credit score, the lower the interest rate, and that's going to save you thousands of dollars over the life of a loan. And I do mean thousands of dollars. For example, I have a client right now who is paying $800 on a car payment that she should probably only be paying about $250 on. So what could you do with that extra couple $100 a month? I mean, you could take that and put it towards another car or into an investment account, or, you know, pay your bills off or whatever it is. But this person is stuck with this car payment because her credit score is so bad. But don't you worry, we're going to fix that for her. Obviously, if your interest rates are lower, you can buy more. So we want to make sure that your credit score is correct so that you have the ability to not drown in debt and still have a little bit of space there for you to be able to either buy more or save. Okay, so FICO credit scores range between 300 and 850. Now this PowerPoint is going to talk about FICO scores. There is another scoring model that most of you guys are familiar with. You probably just don't know what it's called. Most people call it Credit Karma. It is not Credit Karma. Credit Karma is a website. It is not a credit score. The scores that you're seeing on Credit Karma are with Equifax and TransUnion, and they are Vantage scores. There's a difference between a FICO score and a Vantage score. Today we're just going to talk about FICO scores. At some point in the future I will release a PowerPoint on Vantage scores. Just know that they are two different scoring models, which is why if you look at a Credit Karma score and then you look at a FICO score, oftentimes they are vastly different. They don't normally line up. Every once in a while they do. Most of the time they do not. Your FICO scores can range between 300 and 850, with anything below a 580 being considered a low score. High scores are anything 720 and above, and of course we have listed for you here your median scores, anything that's in between. So for the purpose of purchasing a home, which is why I'm asked to do these seminars so much, so I will address that. For the purpose of purchasing a home, there are some lenders that can lend to you with a credit score as low as a 580. However, you're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to be able to qualify at that scoring level. So we really just want to get your scores up as high as we can, because not only are they going to affect your ability to buy a home, but the next time you need to buy a car or when you want to furnish that home, those kinds of things, you're still going to be paying crazy amounts of interest if you have that low of a credit score. Typically, you want to try to get your scores to 640 or above. It opens up a whole lot of options for you. There are grants, there's all kinds of stuff out there that opens up once your score is at a 640, and most people can lend to you at that rate. Now, if you're trying to buy a big house, you definitely need a higher credit score. There's lots of lending criteria there. I am not a loan officer. I'm really just spitting out everything that I've heard over the past couple of years. So definitely make sure that you check with whoever it is that you're trying to purchase from, whether it's a home or a car, or even buying furniture. Check and see what their finance data is. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to try to get you to a 640 with a goal to get above a 720. Now, you can go as high as an 850, and people think that that is the perfect credit score. But really, your score doesn't need to be at an 850, and it's almost like a unicorn to find somebody who has an 850 credit score. It's very difficult to get to, and I will tell you that it's normally not having any derogatory marks or overages on your credit for more than 15 years. So it's difficult to get there, but definitely something that can be achieved. But that kind of depends on if your creditors are reporting your accounts the way that they're supposed to. So the average credit score in 2015, April of 2015, was a 695. The newest scores did just come out, and our scores are going up. In the United States right now, we're around a 699. But the concentrations of scores is actually between 650 and 699 in the United States. So if you're in that range, you're average. If you're below that range, obviously you're below average, and we're going to do what we can to fix that. Okay, let's get into the heart of this. All right, your credit report accuracy. So this part always kind of cracks me up, why and how they did this. But in 2012, the Federal State Commission, the FTC, conducted a national study of credit report accuracy of 1,001 consumers. I have no idea why they had to add an extra consumer in there, but they did. But the results were a little bit crazy. 26% of credit reports contained at least one error serious enough to result in a higher credit risk tier or a denial of credit. Now let's just take that in. You're sitting in a room of 4 people. One of them has an error on their credit report that is so bad that they have to pay more in interest than they need to. 1 in 4 people. That's insane. 49% of disputed credit errors resulted in a change to their credit score. So if you legitimately look at your credit report, you can find the errors in credit reporting. That is whether you have good credit or whether you have bad credit. You can find where those errors are. And it's happening because the creditors themselves are not entering the information into the Metro 2 system, which is the system that uploads into the credit bureaus. They are not entering that information incorrectly, and it's reporting, it's actually resulting in your scores being lower. So that's why they say that 49% of them resulted in a change, because that's what needs to happen. And I really believe that that percentage could be higher if people really knew what they were looking for. 20% of those disputed errors did result in a credit score increase significant enough to have lowered the consumer's interest rate on financing. So think about that. Those consumers got robbed. They got robbed of those months and months of having to pay additional interest because a creditor put the wrong information into a system or didn't put it in there complete. So the credit scoring model and the way that that information is uploaded into the credit bureaus is a very flawed system, resulting in consumers just paying way more money than they need to pay. So definitely take a look and learn about the simple errors that you can find on your credit report that could potentially result in you having more money every month. All right, so let's get into the heart of this. The 5 factors of credit scoring. Here it is. Ta-da! This is the credit pie. I like calling this the credit pie because it looks like pie and I like pie and, well, anyways. Okay, so number 1 is your payment history. That's worth 35% of your score. 2 is outstanding balances. It's worth 30% of your score. Coming in third is your credit history at 15%. 10% of your score is credit type, and the other 10% is your inquiries. Now let's really get into this and break these down for you. Okay, your payment history is number 1. This is the biggest chunk of this pie. We are talking about 297 points. That's huge. The number 1 way to get those points is to pay your bills on time and not have any derogatory marks. Period. A beautiful credit score with maxing out that number of points is just as simple as paying your bills on time, not getting charge-offs, collections, or judgments. So, greatest impact is paying your bills on time. No late payments, no collections, no judgments, no charge-offs. By the way, judgments, not reporting on credit anymore. So they all have a negative impact to your score. A single 30-day late can cost you between 30 and 75 points to your score. I've seen credit scores that are 750 fall down to the mid-6s because a consumer was 30 days late. It happens. The higher your credit score is, the more you're going to suffer. The lower your credit score is, the less you're going to suffer. I'm not saying have bad credit and make late payments because it's still going to affect you, but the higher your credit score, the more the algorithm believes that you are not a risk. And the second you give them a reason to think that you're a risk, you absolutely get punished by those points disappearing in your score. So something to pay attention to here when you are trying to repair your own credit is everything that's happened in the last 2 years. Because remember, in the previous slide we talked about having a history. Everything beyond the 2 years kind of leans more towards your credit history, but everything that happens in this year and last year has the biggest impact on your score. So if you have new collections, new charge-offs, new late payments, that kind of stuff, it's going to have its biggest impact in the last 24 months. After that, it starts to really just not affect your score as much. It still has an effect, it's just not so high of an effect. Okay, number 2, worth 255 points of your score, or 30%, is your outstanding balances. Now there's 2 different ways that this is going to get gauged. The first one is in your installment accounts. And we're going to talk about installment accounts again in just a little while, but installment accounts are basically loans. Anything that you've been loaned to where you have to make a set payment every month will impact your outstanding balances. I want you to pay attention to this when we talk about student loans. So oftentimes people go to school and they put their loans into deferment while they're in school or just as they're getting out, as they're trying to get a job, and they're like, oh my God, I have like $80,000 in student loans. How am I going to make this payment? They put them into deferment, which sounds awesome because A, I don't have to make a payment. But what they're forgetting is during that time, your loan is accruing interest. And The way that the FICO algorithm calculates that is almost like a credit card that's gone over the limit. You'll see the amount of money that you borrowed, and then you'll see the amount of money that you owe, and the amount of money that you owe will be more than what you borrowed because that interest has accrued. Just be careful about that stuff when you put your student loans into deferment. It can actually hurt your credit score. So if you can afford to make those payments, you absolutely should make those payments. Let's talk about credit cards real quick. Your credit card balances have probably the biggest impact on your credit scores month to month. So for the purpose of easy math, let's say you have a $300 credit card from Capital One, and this month you had an unexpected car charge you had to take care of. Your tire blew out and you needed 2 new front tires. So you went and you took your Capital One card, you put 2 new front tires on it, and you only paid the minimum payment. Now those 2 new front tires cost you $299. You've just maxed out the ratio of what you can borrow versus what you did borrow. And that is worth 30% of your score if you've only got the one credit card. So the next month, you go and you pay that card down, and you pay it down to about $100. You will see, if you're monitoring your credit, that your score rebounds very quickly just based on you making the payment on that credit card. That's your ratio and your outstanding balance. You want to make sure that you can keep those credit cards down below 30% usage. And honestly, if you want to max out the number of cards that you're getting, the number of points that you're getting, you want to make sure that you keep that between 5 and 10% of what you can borrow. So you want to max out the points, 5 to 10%. You want to look good to the bureaus and to a lender, 30%. I recommend the 5 and 10%. The more you spend, the more you have to pay in interest. Just remember that. Number 3 is your credit history. It's worth 15% of your score and impacts about 128 points. So this portion of your credit score is going to talk about the length of time since a particular credit line was established. We want old accounts to stay on your credit. People, when they are doing credit repair, the very first thing they want to do is take off anything that's old, and you're taking off 128 points worth of value from your credit score. Even if your oldest account is a negative account, it needs to stay right where it is because it's contributing to your history. So what we see is people who have between 10 and 20 years of credit history normally have a higher credit score than somebody who is, say, young, just getting out of school. So a seasoned borrower, always going to be stronger in this area. And parents, if you want to help your kids out when they first get out of school, one of the things that you can do is you can actually add them onto a credit line or a trade line where you've got a great card, a great credit card with a very low balance and a very high limit that has no derogatory, no late payments or anything on it. If you add them on as an authorized user, you create instant history from that. It affects all 5 parts of their credit pie and instantly establishes a history. Just make sure that when you put them on as an authorized user, you tell the creditor not to send your child to the credit card, because if they spend money on that card, you're responsible for it. Okay, number 4 is your credit type. It has a 10% impact on your score. It's worth about 85 points. So for this, remember we were talking earlier about installment accounts, and I was talking more about credit cards than I was installment accounts. Here's where the installment accounts come in. There's lots of different kinds of installment accounts that we're talking about. And remember, when I say installment, I mean it's a loan. It's something that you have to make the same payment on every month until it's done. It's not revolving. You don't get that money back and you get to use it again. It's an installment account. So things like your auto loans, your student loans, mortgages, that kind of stuff, furniture loans, that is all installment accounts. Most of the time, that's installment accounts. And then credit cards are your revolving accounts. Revolving means that you have a certain line that you can spend to, and then once you pay it down, you can spend it again. That's a revolving account. It's like a revolving door. There is one more type of trade line, and it's called open, and we equate that with an Amex because there is no limit on it. You have to pay it off in 30 days, so it's called open. So if you see anything on your credit report that says open, they're referring to an Amex, and if it is lined up with any other account, it's improper reporting. So lenders, they take a look at your use of credit cards specifically, which we already talked about, and it's going to give them an indication of whether you're going to use that credit conservatively when you're given the opportunity, or if you're just going to max it out because you're just not credit responsible. So remember, credit cards staying low, big, big deal. All right, last but not least are our inquiries. They're worth 10% of your score, or 85 points. The percentage of the credit score that quantifies the number of inquiries made on a consumer's credit within 6-month period. It's actually like a 12-month period. You want to make sure you don't have more than 3 to 4 inquiries a year. A little trick for you is if you are trying to get a mortgage or you're trying to get a car, you have 30 days to window shop. So you can apply for as many mortgages as you want to, or you can apply for as many cars as you want to in a 30-day window. As long as they're categorized the same way, then those inquiries will only count as one. Now, most of the time when you're applying for a mortgage, most mortgage lenders do categorize their inquiries the correct way. But what we see is that when somebody applies for a car, that's not true. So you will see car dealerships will run your credit through 30 different lenders, and your score will tank afterwards. Well, if you look at those inquiries, you can see that some of them will say finance, some of them will say personal, and then some of them will say auto. That's one of the #1 fixes and the easiest fixes that you can make to your credit report, is to lump them all under auto so that the inquiries are reporting correctly and you'll recover those scores. So each hard inquiry can cost between 2 and 25 points on a credit score. Make sure that you apply wisely. And part of the reason that this is so important is what they found is that people who apply for credit over and over and over again are entering into desperation, which means that they are more likely to file bankruptcy. So that's where this whole inquiry part of the FICO algorithm came from. All right, let's talk about how to increase your scores. We talked about most of this already. Pay down your balances on credit cards to be lower than 30% of the credit limit. Between 5 and 10% will max out the number of points that you get. You can redistribute balances among your credit cards to be 30% or lower of the credit limit. We want all of your cards to be 30%. We don't want 1 or 2 cards to be, 5% and then 2 other cards to be maxed out. We want them all below 30%. Don't ever close out a credit card when you pay it off. You will affect 2 things. You'll affect your credit ratio, and then you will affect part of your history. So don't close out those credit cards. #4, you can always call your credit card companies and ask them to increase the limit on the credit cards, but don't increase your spending on them. So if you get an increase in your credit card, that's not a bad thing, but you want to treat it the same way that you did when it had a lower balance. So if you get a Capital One card, you have a $300 balance on it and they up it to $1,000, you are still going to pretend you only have a limit of $300. Okay, #5, open a new credit card to establish your credit history if you need to. #6, get added as an authorized user on a seasoned credit card with a low balance and a high limit. That's what we talked about, parents, for your children who may be graduating from college or looking to establish their credit history. It's also great for family members, people who are trying to buy homes, who may just need a little bit of boost to their credit. Adding them as an authorized user is fantastic because you can also take them off as an authorized user as soon as they establish their own credit. Okay, so Collections. Let's talk about collections. Be very careful which collections you pay. Unless a collection is tied to an original creditor, you probably don't want to pay it. And you definitely don't want to pay it if it is beyond the statute of limitations, which in Virginia is 5 years. You can negotiate collection payoffs, and you really need to, because collection companies, third-party collections, do not buy the debt at the amount that they charge you. So for instance, if it's a $1,000 debt, the collection company has probably only paid about $75 for it, and all they're looking to do is make their money back and a little bit of a profit. So most of the time, these collections are negotiable. Make sure that when you send the credit card company a check, if you're going to send them a check, that you write the verbiage on the back that says cashing this check constitutes payment in full. Make sure you pay off any and all judgments, which while they're not reporting on credit reports anymore for the 3 major bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, they are still reporting in LexisNexis. So if your lender pulls a risk review from LexisNexis, they may show up, so make sure you pay off those judgments. And then make sure you ask your creditor when those changes are going to show up on your credit report, because that way you can inform your lender that this is the time period before they can go ahead and repull your scores. Speaking of repulling your scores, lenders have this really cool thing called credit rescoring, where if they tell you that you need to pay something off to increase your credit score and you do that, you just provide them proof and they do what's called a rapid rescore. Now these are not free, they will be added onto your loans, so the cost of your loan. So if you can wait it out, you should wait it out. If not, this is definitely a great option for you. And that's all I have for you today. I really hope that you did learn something and you can take a little bit of this information and use it in your credit life and potentially raise your score. Or if you have a high credit score right now, you'll know how to keep it that way. If you need any other information, please just visit soscreditsolutions.com. If you'd like us to do a review, just hit /review and we will absolutely contact you and do a credit review for you and see where you are and where you can go. Pay attention to our page, our YouTube page, our Instagram page, and our Facebook page, because we post lots of cool tips. I really hope that this information was useful for you and you can even pass it on to somebody else who may need it. All right, well, I hope to see you around the interwebs, and if you ever need us, just give us a call at 757-356-5756. Take care.